These are just taking up space, Amanda sneered, gesturing to the empty shelves in my bedroom where my mother's gifts had once stood. I did you a favor, really. Time to stop living in the past. My name is Sophie Matthews, and at 21, I just discovered my stepmother had thrown away every gift my late mother had left me. The handmade jewelry box she'd crafted during her final months, the letters she'd written for each of my birthdays, the photo albums she'd carefully curated, all gone. I gripped the doorframe of my childhood bedroom, forcing myself to remain calm. When? I managed to ask, though I already knew the answer. It had to have been during my final exams when I couldn't come home for 3 weeks. Last Thursday, Amanda said, examining her perfectly manicured nails. The garbage collectors took everything. Your father agreed it was for the best. You need to move on, Sophie. It's been 5 years. 5 years since cancer took my mother. 5 years since Amanda swooped in to help my grieving father. 4 years since their rushed wedding. And now, standing in my stripped-down bedroom, I felt a strange sense of calm. Because what Amanda didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that I'd been expecting something like this. Thank you, I said quietly, watching confusion flicker across her face. She'd expected tears, pleading, maybe even anger. Instead, I smiled. Thank you, she repeated, thrown off balance by my reaction. Yes, thank you for showing me exactly who you are. I walked to my closet, pulling out my laptop bag. Is there anything else you've thrown away while I was gone? Any other favors you'd like to tell me about? Amanda's eyes narrowed. Don't take that tone with me. I'm your mother now. Stepmother, I corrected firmly, and you've never let me forget it. The memory of my real mother's last days flooded back. She'd been so weak, but her mind had remained sharp. Sophie, she'd said, holding my hand, I know you better than anyone. You're smart like me. You see things others miss. Promise me you'll use that gift. I had used it. I'd watched Amanda for 4 years, noticed how her eyes lingered on my mother's things, saw the way she'd accidentally break or misplace small mementos. I prepared for this moment meticulously. Your father supports my decision, Amanda said, lifting her chin. He agrees it's time for you to grow up. Where is Dad? I asked, though again, I knew the answer. Business trip to Chicago. He'll be back next week. She smiled, probably thinking she had me cornered. No witnesses, no immediate backup. I nodded, pulling out my phone. Perfect timing, as usual. I started typing a message. What are you doing? Amanda demanded, her confidence wavering slightly. Texting Mrs. Harrison, you know, our next-door neighbor. The one who helped me pack up all Mom's most precious gifts last month. I watched the color drain from Amanda's face. The one who has everything safely stored in her basement. You're lying, Amanda snapped, but her voice trembled. Am I? Mom always said I was smart like her. Did you really think I wouldn't notice how things kept disappearing? How you'd test the waters by throwing away smaller items? I showed her my phone screen, where Mrs. Harrison had already replied with a thumbs-up emoji. Amanda's perfectly composed facade cracked. Your father will be very interested in the documentation I've kept, I continued calmly. Every missing item, every accident, all carefully noted and photographed. Mom taught me the importance of keeping good records. I walked to my desk, opening the bottom drawer. She also taught me about backup plans. I pulled out a sealed envelope, my mother's handwriting clear on the front. For Sophie, open when you're ready. Amanda's eyes fixed on the envelope. What is that? Something Mom left me. Something you couldn't throw away because you didn't know it existed. I tucked the envelope into my bag. I've been waiting to open it until I was sure, really sure, about what kind of person you are. Thank you for making that crystal clear today. The look on Amanda's face shifted from shock to fear. She knew she'd miscalculated, but she didn't know how badly. Not yet. Sophie, she started, her voice taking on the sickly sweet tone she used when trying to manipulate situations. I was only thinking of your well-being. Those old things were holding you back. Save it? I cut her off. I'm leaving now. I'll be staying with Mrs. Harrison until Dad returns. And when he does, I smiled again, watching her squirm. Well, we'll have quite a story to tell him, won't we? As I walked out of my childhood home, Amanda called after me, her voice tinged with desperation. But I didn't turn back. My mother had taught me many things before she died, but perhaps the most important lesson was this. Sometimes the best revenge isn't immediate confrontation, but careful preparation. I patted my bag, feeling the envelope inside. Whatever Mom had left me in that letter, I knew now was the perfect time to find out. Amanda had just played right into my hands, thinking she was destroying my mother's legacy. Instead, she'd given me exactly the opening I'd been waiting for. Mrs. Harrison was already on her porch, waiting for me with a knowing smile. "Ready to put your mother's plan into action, dear?" she asked as I approached. I nodded, finally letting myself feel the full weight of the moment. "More than ready, Mrs. Harrison." Mom always said timing was everything. And as I followed her inside, I couldn't help but think about how proud my mother would be. She'd taught me well to watch, to wait, and most importantly, to be prepared. Amanda had no idea what was coming, but she was about to learn a valuable lesson about underestimating a daughter's love for her mother. Mrs. Harrison's basement was like stepping into a time capsule of my mother's love. Every gift, every letter, every precious memory that Amanda thought she destroyed was carefully preserved here, protected by someone who'd known my mother since before I was born. "Your mother was a brilliant woman," Mrs. Harrison said, watching me run my fingers over the familiar jewelry box. She knew exactly what Amanda was like, even before the wedding. I settled onto an old armchair, finally ready to open the envelope I'd carried all these years. My hands trembled slightly as I broke the seal, and a collection of papers slipped out. The first was a letter, written in my mother's elegant handwriting. "My dearest Sophie, if you're reading this, then you've finally seen Amanda's true colors. I knew this day would come. She's not as clever as she thinks she is. I watched her circling your father at the hospital, wearing her sympathy like a designer coat. I knew what she was, but I also knew you need to discover it for yourself. What you don't know, what she doesn't know, is that I've left you more than just memories. The gifts she's so eager to destroy, they're decoys, sweetheart. The real inheritance is something she can't touch." My heart pounded as I unfolded the second document. It was a deed to a property I'd never known existed, along with bank statements showing a trust in my name that would mature on my 21st birthday, which was exactly 1 week away. "Your grandmother's lake house," Mrs. Harrison explained, smiling at my shocked expression. "Your mother transferred it to a trust before she died. Amanda has no idea it exists. Your father signed off on it when your mother was sick, but I don't think he even remembers. He was so grief-stricken then." The lake house. I had childhood memories of summers spent there, but I thought it had been sold years ago. Instead, my mother had quietly secured it for me, along with enough money to ensure I'd never have to depend on Amanda's false generosity. "There's more," Mrs. Harrison added, pulling out a folder of her own. "I've been keeping records too. Every nasty comment Amanda's made, every time she's tried to erase your mother's memory, and more importantly, every questionable expense she's charged to your father's accounts." I leafed through the documentation, my eyes widening. Designer clothes, secret spa weekends, transfers to an account I didn't recognize, all hidden under business expense labels that my father, in his distraction, had never questioned. "Mom knew," I whispered, reading further into her letter. "She knew Amanda would try to take everything. Your mother was protecting you the only way she could," Mrs. Harrison said softly, "by giving you the tools to protect yourself when the time came." My phone buzzed. Another frantic text from Amanda. "Your father's flying home early. Please come back so we can talk about this like adults." I showed the message to Mrs. Harrison, who chuckled. "She's panicking." Good, let her sweat it out. I spent the next few hours going through everything my mother had left me. The trust wasn't just money. It was carefully structured to provide for my education, housing, and even seed money for a business if I wanted it. She thought of everything. "What are you going to do?" Mrs. Harrison asked as evening approached. I held up my mother's letter, which ended with words that made my heart swell. "Remember, Sophie, the best revenge isn't about destruction. It's about rising above, about building something beautiful from what others try to destroy. Show them what you're made of, my clever girl. Show them what a daughter's love can do." "I'm going to do exactly what Mom suggested," I replied, pulling out my phone to send Amanda one final message. "Don't bother having Dad come home early. When he arrives, we'll all sit down together. I have quite a few documents to share, including Mom's letter, your shopping sprees, and the trust fund details. Hope you're ready for an interesting conversation." Amanda's response was immediate. "Please, we can work something out. I'll replace all the gifts." But I didn't reply. Instead, I turned to Mrs. Harrison. Would you like to help me plan a housewarming party? I think the lake house could use some new memories. She grinned, already reaching for her address book. Your mother would be so proud of you right now. Looking around at the preserved gifts, the documented evidence, and the future my mother had carefully planned for me, I felt a deep sense of peace. Amanda thought she destroyed my mother's legacy today. Instead, she triggered the unveiling of my mother's greatest gift, the gift of freedom from her influence. The next few days would be interesting, to say the least. But for now, sitting in Mrs. Harrison's basement surrounded by proof of my mother's love and foresight, I could almost hear her laughing. She outplayed Amanda from beyond the grave, and the game was only just beginning. The day my father returned home, I was ready. Mrs. Harrison accompanied me as moral support, carrying a folder of evidence that would change everything. As we approached the house, I could see Amanda pacing in the living room window, her perfectly maintained facade finally showing cracks. My father opened the door before we could knock, looking tired and confused. Sophie? Mrs. Harrison. What's going on? Amanda's been calling me nonstop about some misunderstanding. Oh, there's no misunderstanding, I said calmly, walking past him into the house. Let's all sit down. There's quite a lot to discuss. Amanda stood in the corner of the living room, her arms crossed defensively. John, I can explain everything. Sophie's just being dramatic. Dramatic? Mrs. Harrison interrupted, setting her folder on the coffee table. Is that what you call destroying a dead woman's gifts to her daughter? My father's face paled. What gifts? What's going on? I took out my mother's letter first. Dad, you should read this. Mom wrote it before she died. She saw all of this coming. As he read, his hands began to shake. Amanda tried to peer over his shoulder, but he moved away from her, sinking into his armchair. When he looked up, his eyes were filled with tears. The lake house, he whispered. I'd completely forgotten about signing those papers. Your mother said it was important, but I was so lost back then. That's right, I said softly. And while you were lost, Amanda was busy planning. Should we show him the expense reports, Amanda? The secret account? The designer shopping sprees hidden as business expenses. Amanda's face went from pale to red. Those are lies. John, you can't believe. Everything's documented, Mrs. Harrison cut in, opening her folder. Every transaction, every hidden purchase. Your mother was an accountant, Sophie. She taught me exactly what to look for. My father spent the next hour going through everything. The trust documents, the expense reports, the photographs of items Amanda had accidentally broken or lost over the years. With each revelation, he seemed to age and strengthen simultaneously, as if scales were falling from his eyes. All this time, he said finally, looking at Amanda with new eyes, I thought you were helping us heal. Instead, you were trying to erase Catherine completely. Amanda tried one last time to salvage the situation. John, please. I did it for us. Those old memories were holding us back. Sophie needs to move on. Stop. My father's voice was firm. Just stop. I think you should pack your things and leave. Leave? You can't be serious. I'm your wife. Not for much longer, he replied, holding up the expense reports. I've seen enough. Get out. As Amanda stormed upstairs to pack, my father turned to me. Sophie, I'm so sorry. I've been blind, and you've paid the price for it. I squeezed his hand. Mom knew this would happen. That's why she prepared everything. She was protecting us both. The lake house, he said thoughtfully. We had such good summers there. We can have them again, I suggested. I'm planning a housewarming party. Would you like to come? He smiled, really smiled for the first time in what felt like years. I'd love that. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of change. Amanda moved out, divorce proceedings began, and I started renovating the lake house. With each box of my mother's preserved gifts that we moved in, the house came alive with memories and new possibilities. The housewarming party was everything I could have hoped for. Old family friends, my father looking years younger, and Mrs. Harrison beaming with pride as she helped arrange Mom's restored gifts around the house. We even found Mom's old recipe box and recreated her famous summer barbecue. You know, Mrs. Harrison said, as we watched the sunset from the deck, your mother told me once that love doesn't die with the person. It lives on in the plans they make, the lessons they teach, and the strength they inspire. I touched the locket around my neck. one of the many gifts Amanda had failed to destroy. Inside was a tiny photo of Mom, smiling her knowing smile. She was right, I replied. Amanda thought she could erase Mom's presence from our lives, but she actually helped reveal just how deep Mom's love went. She protected us even after she was gone. My father joined us, holding a glass of Mom's favorite wine. To Catherine, he said, raising his glass. The smartest woman I ever knew, and the mother who never stopped looking out for her daughter. As we toasted, I looked around at the lake house, my house now, filled with love, laughter, and carefully preserved memories. Amanda had tried to destroy my mother's legacy, but instead, she helped reveal its true strength. Some gifts, I realize, are simply too powerful to be thrown away. Mom had given me more than just material things. She'd given me the wisdom to wait, the strength to stand firm, and the courage to build something beautiful from attempted destruction. And as I watched the sunset over the lake she loved so much, I knew she was still with us, still teaching us, still loving us, in every memory we'd saved and every new one we'd create.